Hey y'all, I'm back. Late, a week, maybe two. Probably 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks late. Thank you for coming back to I Swear to Drunk I'm Not God. This is season 3, episode 9. And we got a guest. Dustin is here.
What's up?
Dustin hasn't been here so long.
I don't even remember the last episode I did. It wasn't this season.
Nope. I don't think you've been here at all.
No, not this season at all. Like, I haven't been on this season, not one. This is the first episode of the season.
There's only been 9 episodes.
I mean, yes, 100%.
So it's fine. And so I'm going to make a quick announcement, really quick. I'm stopping at 10. I'm stopping at 10.
Okay.
I want to finish my script. I'm going to stop at 10. I'm at a really nice, chunky, juicy spot at my script. And I want to finish it.
I need to start reading it. You sent it.
Yeah,
and I
want you to read it. And I got 3 acts left. I'm not going to get it done before I go back to work. But I'm at a good place. I got a lot of good ideas. But I want to get it done before like October-ish. Okay. By October, I'm going to kick off season 4.
I can't believe this is 4 seasons in. I feel like you just started this.
And this season was so all over the place and just so messed up because of the election.
The world was all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, the world is still currently jacked up. I am so numb, but whatever. And it is what it is.
Big, beautiful bill.
Yeah, it is what it is. And it is what it is. So yeah. So I'm going to stop at 10 and then I'm going to come back Halloween again.
Okay.
Duh.
Right.
I'm going to come back for Halloween. Got a big episode planned for Halloween.
That one. I already kind of know pieces of it, so I'm excited.
So excited. We got to talk about what we're doing for Halloween too.
Oh, absolutely.
Just for the...
Do we need to already? Can we wait until like August? Because we should enjoy summer if we start talking about fall.
I mean... I'm cool.
We're doing something for Halloween this
We're
year.
definitely doing something for Halloween, but I don't really I need something to look forward to. So we need to get that going because I need to I need to talk about a costume. I don't want that to be last minute. I haven't even thought about a costume.
The Murder Mystery concert?
Yes, we did. That was Vampire and I was Morticia.
Was that last year?
Yeah.
That seems like so long ago.
I didn't tell you I also had my post-op appointment yesterday.
How did it go?
I'm completely healed.
So you took a bath?
Yes, I took a bath today.
Yay.
I was so excited to take a bath.
I can only imagine.
That was she was like,
you soak in the tub so much.
Oh my God.
To not be able to for 15, 16, 17 days, however much it was.
I messaged her and was like, can I take a bath? She was like, no, you have to wait until July 1st. I was like, fuck. She was like, oh, you can have sex. And I was like, can I take a bath?
Because I don't want to have sex if I can't take a bath.
It's like, yeah, sure. Can I take a bath? So yeah, I can take a bath. So I took a bath today and I feel wonderful. This was just great. So I did that. I did my mammogram. I was just like, let's just knock all of this out. Look here.
Look at us being 40 almost.
Look. Well, I've been getting mammograms since like 30. So it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we got dense breast tissue. My grandmother had breast cancer. It's just a lot.
Yep, nope, makes sense.
You got to do it. What do we talk about today?
Let's find out.
We're talking about the killing of Bobby Franks. You know nothing.
No, I don't actually know anything about Bobby Franks.
You do know about this, but I changed the title. You'll get it soon.
Okay.
It's fine. We're going to talk about the killing of Bobby Franks. The cocktail today is not what we're drinking, but it is the South Side Fizz. Very Chicago specific episode because, again, what I'm learning is that I could do an episode if it's Chicago based because I can write my script at the same time because it's also Chicago based. So as long as I can do the same, I could get these things done.
It also probably gives you ideas from real life to your script.
Yes, because I can learn the language. I can learn. Yeah, I could be in the world, which I am having so much fun doing that freaking script.
Just want y'all to know we're gonna be famous.
What?
Brittany's probably gonna be famous, and I'll just be there. But I'll reap the benefits.
I really hope Trump dies. I mean, yeah, I do. But I really hope he dies by the time I'm ready to do this script because I want full reign. I just want to be able. I want to be.
Actually, would love for him to be alive once we're famous, so I can tell him about himself.
I want
to run into him and be like, "You're a douche." That'd be fun.
I don't want to talk to him.
I didn't say talk to him. I said just call him out of his name.
You're a piece of shit.
But in person.
He's just evil. I'm going to have a quick little like Occam's razor moment where I'm just going to because I'm notorious for just like oversimplifying really complex issues. These people are just flat out evil. At this point, I'm just like not looking at it as anything more complex than that. It's mean, it's evil, it's unwarranted, it's greed. I think it's a great con that these people have come up with, and I'm over it. So,
yep, 3 more years.
Yeah. And doing the script, being in the script, and working on my episodes have just been my like happy place. Every now and again, going out, kicking it with you, expecting to even go to work has
when
been.
You go back?
On the 14th.
Of July?
Yeah, man.
I don't like in like.
Oh yeah.
12 days.
Yep, I go back on the 14th. So even going back to work, I'm like, I'm just excited to think about anything that has nothing to do with any of those fucking morons. I am sick of anything that has anything to do with them. They're awful, ignorant, stupid people.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Way of putting it.
That's all I got. They're dumb.
Yep.
Now, today we're going to talk about the killing of Bobby Franks. It was a murder of a 14-year-old boy. Bobby Franks disappeared on the quiet Chicago afternoon. His death set off a chain of events that would become the original crime of the century. Okay. Now, I'm going to also say that this may be a part 1 and part 2. We'll see where we end because we had a very long conversation before this. This is also a very long episode. This takes place in the 1920s. So I got deep.
Okay.
Which I do with old stuff because there's so much there. When you're dealing with something that's like 100 years old, like you can't even help yourself.
There's so many, like just everything, especially if it's something that.
Yeah. And all the case files are like pretty much there.
It's the 20s. So like there were.
Yeah. It's there.
Yeah. It's not 1600s.
This is my Pride episode. Even though it's July 1st or 2nd or whatever. Who cares? Whatever.
Pride.
But it's also late. So at first I was like, oh, it'll be a part 1, part 2. Happy birthday. But, if it's not, we'll keep going. If it is, then it is. Then you got 2 parts. And I recommend you listen to both parts at the same time.
We got to give you a total of 12 episodes at the end of this.
Or 11.
Oh, because I can't count.
Or 2 parts in the 10. Because I never, you got it. Yeah. You're right, though.
I'm like, wait, can I not?
Did I have another 2-parter this year? I don't think I did a 2-parter this year.
No, I don't think you did a 2-parter this year.
Yeah, I have been intellectually lazy. No, I haven't. But I have definitely been lazy.
Some of your episodes were very intellectual.
They were.
Especially in the beginning, you were very into,
I was very politics.
You were very into the politics, and, you were doing reports and
I was not letting
report up. And
I was not letting up this year.
And so, I don't think those were intellectually
I was
lazy because it takes a lot of reading those kind of reports is labor intensive because the way the language they use and the way they write it, it's
a lot. The legalese is crazy.
Yeah.
And then, I needed to get that out of my system, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to do that. That really did help, though.
Well, that makes sense.
So, all right, let's do it. Let's start from the beginning.
Let's go.
So picture it. Let me clear my throat because I always.
Oh my God, my allergies have been killing me these last 2 days.
On me,
like
you
I have
hear
like
me?
This like I feel like there's like something just
always
stuck in my throat at the moment.
And that's the thing is like I'm a jackass because what I could do is just cleanse my sinuses, which is what my doctor told me to do.
I could just take some allergy medicine, but I don't. I suffer through the season.
Yeah, basically, I'm lazy again. But anyway, okay, so we're gonna start from the beginning.
Okay, let's go.
So picture it: Chicago, Illinois, May 21st. 1924.
Gemini season?
Yeah. Or is it Taurus?
No, Taurus ends on 20th.
20th.
Well,
okay.
It depends on which calendar you look at.
Yeah, that's true. Kenwood.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. One of my favorite neighborhoods.
Just like today. Quiet neighborhood. A neighborhood in the 1920s filled with some of the most wealthy Jewish families. It was the Rosenwalds, who made millions off Sears and Roebuck. The Adlers, who also made millions off Sears. But gained a fortune off the Yiddish theater circuit performing for Jewish audiences. They also helped fund and establish the Adler Planetarium that is literally across the street in 1930. It was the first planetarium in the Western Hemisphere.
Oh, dope.
Did not know that.
Me neither.
And then the Sulzbergers, who made their wealth in publishing, I I don't know if you know the paper, the fucking New York Times.
Oh, yeah. I kind of subscribe to that one. That's the only news outlet that I subscribe to.
Only one worth reading at this point.
Yeah, basically.
Now, needless to say, the Kenwood neighborhood was the home of some heavy hitters, and the Franks were no different. Jacob Franks lived on 50th and Ellis in a beautiful, stately mansion.
Still there.
Sure is. He retired from the Rockford Watch Company, where he was president. And he currently was the president of the Chicago Public Library. He made a fortune on real estate and in a gas company as well. He married in 1906. He and his wife, Flora, welcomed their first child, Josephine. And then later that year was Robert, who was nicknamed Bobby on September 19, 1909. And then they had another son named Jacob, who they called Jack in 1913. Now, the book said Jack was born in 1908, and then a couple other sources said he was born in 1913. So I don't know what the situation is with Jack. Now, at 14, Bobby was also called Buddy by his brother. He was fun. And he was also one of those kids that they claimed that he could not stay mad to save his life. Bobby was popular. He was considered one of the brightest and wasn't shy at all about expressing his opinions.
Oh, love it.
On the school's debate club, by the way, Bobby argued about capital punishment. Hear this, okay? He stated that it was
be a topic back then.
Look here. He stated that it was wrong, quote, to take a man weak and mentally depraved and coldly deprive him of his life. He suggested that would it not be better to serve the community by putting him mentally weak criminals into institutions where remove them from society, they would no longer be a menace. Punishment should be reformative, not vindictive.
Yeah, I agree.
Mind you, 14.
No, we're like 100 years later, and yet we still haven't quite figured out how to be reformative.
Nope.
At least not in America.
He won that debate. Bobby was small. He was slender. He was athletic. And that afternoon, he had volunteered to umpire a baseball game between classmates at the all-boys Harvard School for Boys on Ellis Avenue. Didn't know he had one.
I wonder, is that what lab is now?
Yes, it is. Just north of 48th Street. No, lab is University of Chicago.
Oh, good point. Good point. So I'm sure they didn't go from Harvard to University.
Yeah, because I referenced that in here. He wore wool knickers, knee-high brown stockings with argyle tops, a tan jacket that had a black and gold lapel with a shirt and school tie underneath. He also had a cap, and he was seen carrying his overcoat over his arm because it had warmed up a little bit. So around 5:15, Bobby Franks left the baseball game and started the 3-block walk home. And as he approached 49th Street, a friend called out to him from a car with the canvas curtains up. You know, they used to have curtains.
Yeah, like... Not tents.
Or like a hearse.
Or a hearse, yes.
Now at home, Bobby, his family patiently waited for his return. He had not arrived in time for dinner. Quote, if he was 10 minutes late, he would phone my wife. This is what the dad said.
You have a cell phone?
No, but he would call from the school. Or from a friend's house or wherever he was.
Like that in the 20s.
Yeah, they had phones.
I mean, I know.
Philadelphia, 65,000.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. I'm running late. I'm running late.
Yeah, he would just like call from wherever he was.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay.
So they waited and they waited. No call, no Bobby. Flora called Bobby's classmate, Robert Asher. He hadn't seen him since school let out. And Jacob then called his friend and neighbor, Samuel Edelson, who happened to also be a retired corporate attorney and a state senator.
Okay. Sounds powerful.
Yeah. So when Edelson arrived at around 9, Jacob wondered if maybe Bobby locked himself inside the school. So he contacted the headmaster and was redirected to the janitor for access to the school. So the janitor was not available. So they went to the school and they found a window opened in the basement. And they climbed through it. They searched the school. They were looking for Bobby. They were just calling out his name. He wasn't there. At about 10:30 p.m., Flora gets a ring on the phone, and the caller asks for Jacob, the dad. And when she said he wasn't home, the caller said in a, quote, cultured voice, "This is George Johnson. Your son has been kidnapped. Don't worry. Details later."
Okay. Creepy much?
Flora was beside herself when Jacob came home. What was that call about? Surely this was a ransom. Edelson called the telephone company and asked them to trace the incoming calls. Because you could do that.
That was super easy back then. No warrant or anything.
He was like, "Could you trace that call?" Like literally, there was a lady there. It was like,
yes, it was a lady.
Velma.
I remember the operator. You used to be able to dial 0 and get an operator.
You could. You literally could. Hours passed. By 2 a.m., Jacob and Edelson felt it was time to contact the police.
You think?
Now they didn't officially make a report because they didn't want to alarm the kidnappers. So they quietly told the detectives to begin a search for Bobby's whereabouts. That same morning at around 9 a.m., the mailman dropped off a letter to the Franks residence. There were 2 stamps on the letter with the word "special" underlined on the envelope. And the letter said, which is like, why were there stamps? That's confusing.
So
it's like, was there an address? I don't even get that, but whatever. I didn't look at the envelope, but there was probably an address. I'm assuming there was an address. Quote, "Dear sir, as you no doubt know, by this time your son has been kidnapped. Allow us to assure you that he is at present well and safe. You need not fear any physical harm for him, providing you live up carefully to the following instructions and such others as you will receive by future communications. Should you, however, disobey any of our instructions, even slightly, his death will be the penalty. 1, for obvious reasons, make absolutely no attempt to communicate with either the police authorities or any private agency. Should you already have communicated with the police, allow them to continue their investigations, but do not mention this letter. 2, secure before noon today $10,000. This money must be composed entirely of old bills of the following denominations: $2,020, $8,050.
Did you do the math to see what the equivalent of 10,000 is now?
What? The money must be old. Any attempt to include new or marked bills will render the entire venture futile. The money should be placed in a large cigar box, or, if such is impossible, in a heavy cardboard box securely closed and wrapped in white paper. The wrapping paper should be sealed and all openings with sealing wax. Have the money thus prepared as directed above and remain home after 1:00 p.m. See that the telephone is not in use. You will receive a future communication instructing you as to your future course. As a final word of warning, this is a strictly commercial proposition, and we are prepared to put our threats into execution should we have reasonable ground to believe that you have committed an infraction of the above instructions. However, should you carefully follow out our instructions to the letter, we can assure you that your son will be safely returned to you within 6 hours of our receipt of the money. Yours truly, George Johnson.
Okay, George. So 10,000 would be 166,000 in today's money.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That is.
Now 10,000 was nothing to Jacob. He went to the bank.
He was like, I got that.
He made the withdrawal and he waited. The kidnapping was kept a secret from the press, but someone, and it was never clear who, alerted the Chicago Daily News that a wealthy boy had been kidnapped and that Sam Edelson was somehow involved. So Edelson was accosted by James Mulroy, who was a reporter of the Chicago Daily News, at his office, and he asked the reporter not to leak the story, and he would tell them a few details that he knew. He was like, I'll tell you a little bit, but don't leak it. So 20 miles southeast of Kenwood in Wolf Lake, Tony Mink had just completed his night shift when he noticed something caught in a culvert, which is one of those like big sewage like holes.
Oh, okay.
As he walked past a drainage ditch, he went down to get a closer look and noticed 2 small bare feet. just inside the pipe. Tony Mink, a Polish immigrant who didn't speak English well, managed to flag down some men approaching near some railroad tracks. And they pulled the body out and discovered a small boy, nude, with 2 large gashes on his forehead. His face and genitals had streaks of red. His eyes were open. The men placed the body on a handcar and covered it in tarp. And someone ran off to tell the police. They found a tan sock and they found a pair of eyeglasses. Now, back at the Franks' home, Edelson and the reporter awaited the demands of the kidnappers. The editor of the Chicago Daily News knew from Mulroy that Bobby Franks had been kidnapped. So when he heard that a boy's body had been found in Wolf Lake, he was like, I'm going to need you to head down to the morgue.
Let's go look at this.
Yeah, let's go view this body. And when the reporter got to the morgue, he was to call the Franks residence, speak to Mulroy, and describe the body. The only clue was that he wore glasses. The Franks were relieved because Bobby did not wear glasses.
Okay, well, that's good.
Now, Edelson thought it was best to send someone from the family down to view the body. He just didn't think it was worth the chance. So he asked the brother-in-law, Edwin Gresham, to go. And when he arrived, he described the body as this. He said, quote, "It was lying flat. It had on glasses. I removed the glasses to make sure that it was the boy. I looked further to see that there were marks on the boy's teeth. When the boy was a child, he had rickets, and that had left marks or pearls on the teeth. And I looked at the teeth to make sure that the pearls were there. They were there. It was beyond a doubt in my mind that the boy was Robert."
Or the rickets.
Rickets, if I'm not mistaken. No, rickets is like a disease.
Oh.
It's like, I feel like that's what it's a childhood disease. It's like a vitamin deficiency, okay. Calcium deficiency.
Makes sense why your teeth would have
Yeah. So meanwhile, at the Franks' home, a call rang. It was George Johnson. There was a yellow cab coming to pick him up, coming to pick up Jacob and take him to a drugstore on 1465 East 63rd Street. Which I'm like, isn't that a Walgreens?
It's like 63rd and Sony.
like literally, I'm like, isn't that a Walgreens? There he was to wait for further instructions. And when the cab arrived, Jacob didn't go. He didn't see a point. He had a feeling the child was dead. The caller, he was like, "Nigga, bye." The caller rang the phone, and random strangers were like picking up this phone. And so finally, the family received confirmation, and they were stricken with grief. Edelson made a statement on the family's behalf. So, a little context. Kidnappings were rare.
That was the thing. Oh,
no, they were rare. The Lindbergh baby hadn't happened yet.
Okay.
The Wineville chicken coop murders, the episode that I did, was happening at this time, but it was overshadowed by this.
Got it. Okay.
I did an episode on that in the first season.
Yes.
Kidnapping and murder led to a media frenzy. The papers were eating this up. Rewards were offered from the family. Rewards were offered from the police, from the papers themselves. The papers even had a contest for anyone who could come up with the best theory. And they would get money.
People
it was tasteless.
So bored back then.
They were also like completely disrespectful, because that's disrespectful.
I mean, people have been disrespectful all through life. They used to put people in coliseums and make them fight to the death.
That's true.
Or fight lions.
That's true.
You know, people are trash.
That is true. That's fact. Now, at the time, the Bobby Franks murder was CPD's most brutal murder. Robert Crow was a state's attorney, was in charge with putting the case together whenever the suspects were apprehended. So the police started with the interviews. Any and everyone came out of the woodwork with people they saw that day around Wolf Lake. They did have a witness who was walking not too far from where behind Bobby before he went missing. His name was Irving Hartman Jr. He mentioned the car that summoned Bobby, and he knew the make and model. Okay. It was a gray Winton. And then they began searching registrations for the color of the vehicle. Sense. So the police then began randomly, arresting vagrants, drug addicts, just on suspicion.
Yeah.
And then they would eventually release them. Then nothing.
Sounds about right with CPD.
Just nothing. They were like, okay, bye. Now, what they knew was that this case was a ransom somehow gone wrong before the transaction could even be completed. But how? The child was dead before they even made it to step 2.
Well, yeah, maybe they didn't,
I mean, did Bobby do something to upset the kidnappers?
Or was that just their plan to kill him to begin with?
Did they even ever plan to deliver him alive? The fact that the body was nude gave the papers the idea that this was the crime of a, quote, male annoyer of boys.
Oh, is that what we called it then?
A degenerate who sought to cloak his act and the boy's presumed accidental death by the demands for money. The myth of a gay child molester was gaining momentum.
Oh, I bet it would.
Yeah.
Especially during that time. Like, gayness was considered to be a psychological disease.
We don't talk about that.
Shit, until like the 70s.
Yeah. But the police could assume a few things. Kenwood was small. Bobby's circle was small. According to Irving Hartman Jr., there was no indication that Bobby was forced into that car. That's why he got killed, because he knew his kidnappers. Exactly. Alluding to the fact that Bobby knew his kidnappers. He voluntarily got into that car. Also, there's the dump site. It's likely that the killer was familiar with the area. And while all of this was circumstantial, the police put their weight into the ransom note instead. They were like, who is George Johnson? No one. He was literally no one.
Why would I use my real name
exactly.
on a ransom note?
They searched all over the city, but the paper was fancy. The actual stock.
Oh, like it was good stock.
And it was written by somebody with a pretty high education. Quote, a scholarly person, a master of English. Then it was the typewriter itself. These people were actually really good investigators.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I think also back then, wasn't because there wasn't telecommunication. So I think people, to separate themselves from poor people, they paid for better stock. They had, that was part of their elitism.
Yep.
We got good paper.
Yep. 100%. 100%. And, so the typewriter itself was an Underwood portable typewriter with a slightly defective T and F key.
I feel like that's a Murder, She Wrote episode.
It is. They also knew that the typist was a hunted and pecked typist due to the variation in pressure.
Oh, because
this basically means that the kidnapper typed slowly by looking at the keyboard and then pressing each key with 1 or 2 fingers, like they're hunting for the letters and then pecking for the key. I didn't even know.
I didn't know. You can even tell that from a typewriter.
I didn't know it was a term.
I didn't realize
but they could tell from the pressure.
Cool.
So then, and this was the big one, the glasses. Bobby didn't wear glasses.
So whose glasses was these?
Police assumed that the killer must have dropped them. So they were xylenite frames with thick lenses, and the measurements were thick. So the chief was like,
this person blind little motherfucker.
They were not purchased by a laboring man or a man who is employed with his hands. They needed to find out who owned those glasses. So in the meantime, the journalists were doing their own work. Mulroy, the reporter with the Chicago Daily News, and Goldstein, the other one of the Chicago Daily News, and Howard Mayer, who was the campus reporter of the Chicago Evening American, had the odd pleasure of meeting Bobby's second cousin, Richard Loeb. Richard Loeb was 18. He had some interesting things to say about the drugstore ransom note. He told the reporters, the kidnappers were probably going to kill Bobby anyway. Jacob anyway, the dad. Busy street like that, common sense, but worth investigating. Because remember, the dad was supposed to meet them at the drugstore. So he suggested that they all head over to the 63rd Street drugstore to search it.
What was that address?
Look it up. It was 14. I think it was like 1465 East 63rd.
What's that right now?
Yeah, look that up.
1465. 1463 didn't pull up.
So when they arrived, they stopped at it used to be called Van de Bogart and Ross.
Oh, it's those little low income properties.
Oh, so it's apartments now.
And then empty field. So it could be where the empty field is at, because what popped up was 1465. So I'm assuming 1463 is this gated lot that has nothing.
Okay. Well, it used to be Van de Bogart and Ross, a drugstore. They learned that they received a Jacob Franks call the previous day. Loeb said, "You see, I told you we could find it." The reporters reached out to the police, but Loeb did not want to be named. And when they asked him to add something to his cousin's story, he replied, "I would murder." He was like, "I would murder just such a cocky little son of a bitch as Bobby Franks."
Oh, we didn't like our cousin.
Loeb was doing a lot. He was very talkative. He was inviting himself to the inquest because he had to know all the details. He was injecting himself into the investigation.
I'm a bit of a profiler here.
At the inquest, the autopsy showed 4 significant wounds to the head by a blunt instrument, a 3/4 inch gash on the right forehead, a 1/2 inch cut above the left eyebrow, and 2 deep blows to the back of the head. The blows to the back of the head led to the swelling of the brain. Bobby had scratches on the left side of his forehead and on the right shoulder, down his back and right buttock. All had bled, indicating he was alive when they were inflicted. Acid was poured over his face, so he had like this marbled outline around his nose and mouth and part of his chin. The color of his skin in the area was pale. The rest of his face was flush. It was streaked, likely from the fumes. He had this copper color around the mouth, similar streaks down the left side of the face and left shoulder to the elbow. Acid had also been poured on his genitals. The tongue was swollen. Fumes had discolored the windpipe. It was likely he was gagged with a chemical-soaked rag. Bobby suffocated to death and no water entered the lungs, so he was placed in the culvert after death. Then it was the rectum, which was dilated and would admit easily 1 middle finger. That made people crazy. But there was no evidence of a recent forcible dilation. Dr. Joseph Springer, the Cook County autopsy surgeon, was able to say that he doubted that Bobby was sexually assaulted, but it was difficult to say whether or not the attempts had been made or not. So with the letter, people were suspecting that maybe someone at the school did this to Bobby, maybe an instructor, someone who needed money. And so the police started looking into Bobby's instructors, but nothing. And so after the body was discovered, the police had made their way up to Wolf Lake. There were a couple of houses in the area that were off the beaten path. A deputy game warden was questioned about anyone he's seen come in and out in recent days, and he named someone, Nathan Leopold, who was 19, who came up to the lake to watch birds. The police tracked him down to question him, and lo and behold, he lived in Kenwood on 47th and Greenwood, 3 blocks from Bobby Franks. Now, he was asked to come to the precinct for questioning on May 25th. Leopold admitted he went to the area to watch birds, but when asked about glasses, he said he didn't wear glasses. So they asked him if he knew of anyone else that was around Wolf Lake. He identified a few other friends. The police asked him to write an official statement. He had an eerily precise recall. Quote, "I have been going to the general locality of 180th and Avenue F for 6 years. I have been in the locality about 5 or 6 times this year. The last 2 times were Saturday, May 17th and Sunday, May 18th. They took the statement and sent him on his merry way. Police.
Okay, I had to Google like where Wolf Lake was. I thought,
yeah, it's up there by Hammond.
Yeah, it's like that way. When I first did it, there's a Wolf Lake, Illinois, and I was like, that's like 300 miles outside of Chicago.
Yeah,
but
it's like
Wolf Lake, Chicago. It's
yeah,
like
180th and Avenue F. Police spent a week trying to find the owner of those glasses, and when they learned what they learned was that the frames were rare.
They can't be that hard back then. How many opticians? I mean,
well, this particular frame was rare. Why? The hinge was manufactured, well, one, because this person was rich. The hinge was manufactured by Brobow Optical Co. in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, okay.
And only one company in Chicago sold them, Ulmer & Co. They had only sold 3 pairs in Chicago. One was purchased by an attorney who had been in Europe this entire time.
It wasn't him.
Another by a woman who still had hers. And the third purchased by none other than Nathan Leopold Jr. So, needless to say, Robert Crowe wanted to speak to Leopold. And so when they asked, again, they were like, you know, do you wear glasses?
Where they at?
Leopold said he did, but he did not know where they were. I don't know. It was time. It was time. You need to talk. You need to talk. And so when he met with Crowe, they met at LaSalle Hotel, which was a secret meeting to avoid embarrassing one of the wealthiest families in the city. He showed him the glasses.
I want to be that rich.
He was like, yo, these your glasses. He said they look like his. They couldn't be his. He was like, my glasses aren't lost.
Where are they then?
He also asked if Leopold owned a typewriter. He confirmed he did. He said, I do own a typewriter. I own a Hammond multiplex at home. He said, but I don't have a portable. He was like,
How portable was a portable typewriter?
A portable was pretty portable, apparently, because he was like, he asked where he was on the 21st of May. He said he met with Richard Loeb. And they drove down in his red Willis Knight and had lunch at Marshall Field's Grill. He said, then they went to Lincoln Park to watch birds. He said, but then they got really drunk. They got a bit too drunk and then it got late. So then they went to Coconut Grove and then they had dinner to sober up. And then they drove around. They picked up 2 girls to sleep with them, but the girls didn't want to sleep with them. So they kicked them out of the car.
Okay. They're like, oh, you're not
bye.
going?
Bye.
No, well, you're going.
So they walk home. So then at around 10, they returned Leopold to his home. And then his brother was there. Loeb to his home. And then his brother was there. And then Leopold informed him of his involvement in the investigation. His brother said he should probably consult a lawyer. And then his choice was Edelson, which surprisingly, Edelson was at the Franks house.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess
this is
they
in
all know each other.
Kenwood.
It's all in Kenwood. Even though these people are traveling to different parts of the city, that's not typical for Chicagoans.
They were like at Marshall Field's Grill, though.
Well, then they're in Lincoln Park. Then they're in Whiting.
Lincoln Park.
It's all over the place.
So they headed over to. So they say, by the way.
Good point.
So they headed over to Frank's house, and Edelson basically advised him. He said, "Look, you need to cooperate with the search. Do what you got to do. I've known you forever. It's not a big deal." He said, "I'm sure you were bird watching. Your glasses, you probably dropped them when you were bird watching. Not a big deal."
Only 3 pair were sold in Chicago.
Exactly.
2 of them were accounted for. Yours are missing.
It's like yours are missing.
These aren't here.
They're probably yours, but you probably dropped them when you were bird watching.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever.
Just
You
happened to
didn't.
be near
You
the dead boy.
didn't do this. And so when they searched the house, they found an empty eyeglass case. And then they asked Leopold to demonstrate how he could have dropped them. They were, no amount of stumbling could have caused these glasses to drop out of this boy's pocket. He was just like testing it. He was like dropping, falling, flipping, farting. He was doing everything.
And it's like, no.
So then they were like, okay, he was like, so they started searching for, here's the bigger thing. He said the glasses, if he dropped them when you were bird watching, you said that you were bird watching like a week before the crime. But if the glasses were there, these glasses would be filthy. These are not filthy. They're not even dusty. These glasses were dropped recently.
How? But okay. Also, didn't you say these lenses were thick? Like, is he not blind?
Exactly.
He just went around for a week.
You just driving around all the time in Chicago with
no glasses?
And he just recently got those glasses too. So your sight just went bad. So they start searching for a typewriter, the portable, and that the ransom note was written on or typed on. And they asked Leopold for a sample of his handwriting. And so they found his typewriter. And then the maid said there was a portable in the library.
Ooh, okay. Maid dry snitching.
She said, I saw one 2 weeks ago. Now it's missing.
Love the maid.
The search uncovered bottles of strychnine, ether, arsenic, and 2 unlicensed revolvers, a 32 caliber Remington automatic, and a 38 caliber Remington, both loaded.
Okay. So, okay.
Leopold wasn't looking good.
Not at all.
When Crow asked Leopold if there was a difference between killing a man and killing a dog, Leopold said, no, sir.
Okay.
He said, no, sir.
Okay. I think it's a little bit more wrong to kill a dog, but that's
what? Okay. I said, No, okay. So they interviewed him for another 4 hours, and then they escorted him to the station. They were like, nigga, you come with us.
It took him 4 hours?
And since Leopold implicated his friend into his alibi for Thursday, Crow, he should probably interview Richard Loeb
too.
So he contacted Richard. He was like, look, Crow took Loeb to a separate hotel to answer some questions. And Loeb,
I just love that they're taking these rich people to hotels to have conversations.
Look here. Them. Oh,
the privilege.
And watch this. So Loeb smugly said he didn't remember where he was a week ago.
That's a better answer.
And Crow never took Loeb, told Loeb that Leopold mentioned him in his alibi. He was like, pfft. Loeb never mentioned Leopold at all. No mention of the drinking, the girls, nothing.
None of it.
Crow was suspicious, and the interview lasted all night until the following morning. He didn't want to let Loeb leave, so he sent him to the police station to rest. Loeb wasn't fazed. He was actually excited by the experience. He was a fan of...
Okay, there's 2 sociopaths.
He's a fan of detective novels. So he was excited to ride in a police car. When they searched Loeb's house, they soon found out that they had a totally different relationship. There were letters found that would prove this. So they put them into evidence. On the other hand, Leopold was surprised when he heard from the press that Mayer, the guy from the Chicago Evening newspaper, that Loeb hadn't given his alibi. He was like, what? Leopold continued to profess his innocence. And Loeb continued to profess his innocence. And Leopold asked Mayer to tell Loeb to tell the police his alibi. He's like, what is happening? Mayer did go down to the police station and told him to tell the truth. He was like, you need to go down there. So Loeb was like, here's the thing. Yes, I was with the chick. Yes, we were together. That was the thing. He kept saying that Loeb kept not saying anything. They were supposed to be telling the same story.
Yeah.
He was not saying anything. So he told homie, he said, you need to go down there and tell him to tell his alibi. Why is he not telling his alibi?
Like, hello.
So we
didn't do this. I said you were with
you were with me. What is happening? So he did. Finally, word got out. 2 University of Chicago students, Leopold and Loeb, were taken into custody for the kidnapping and murder of Bobby Franks. So the parents, of course, were sure there was going to be swift justice. Their boys would be cleared. There was no way their sons committed such crimes.
No way.
This was absurd.
Rich, intelligent, elitist kids could have ever murdered somebody.
Was it absurd?
Probably not.
It wasn't. Leopold had apparently used a portable typewriter in a study group of law students to type up notes.
Okay.
And a student found by reporters had copies of the typed notes that were shared with the study group and compared them to the ransom note. I'm like, don't nobody like y'all. It's obvious. Don't nobody like y'all. It was a match. Okay. The typeface matched. Crow questioned the law students in front of Leopold, and each remembered Leopold using that typewriter. He tried to deny it, but eventually admitted using the typewriter once. but said that it wasn't his. He borrowed it from a friend who was in Europe.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mind you, he was released home after this.
Oh, that was dumb.
So they could talk to the maid and search for the typewriter. But it still wasn't there. But it didn't matter. They already knew he used it. And the authorities were very suspicious of Leopold and Loeb. But even so,
they let him out.
They handled them with kid gloves. They were all allowed to meet the parents privately. They were allowed to speak to the press. They were allowed to change clothes.
So basically, nothing's changed. Rich people have always gotten privilege.
Yes. They were allowed to get new bedding. They were even escorted to dinner at the Drake.
Dope. I mean,
could you imagine being arrested for kidnapping and murder and then be like, you want to go to Coke Dior and go get a burger?
Why not? Let's go. Let's go.
All in all, Leopold and Loeb cooperated, acting like they completely understood why they were suspects.
Why would they not be cooperating? We just went to have dinner at the Drake.
We just had dinner at the Drake.
You gave me some fresh linen. Probably
what's
get
the
thread
big
count.
deal? Like, I didn't
be nice to me.
They were like, it makes total sense that we will be suspects. What's the problem? We look suspicious.
It's okay.
So Crow was becoming increasingly more suspicious, especially after reading their letters to each other. So one was dated on October 9th, 1923. It was found in Loeb's bedroom when Leopold wrote, our former relations. The Loeb and Leopold, it's the two L's.
It's the two L's, yeah.
Our former relations. Not to mention, they were also full of threats and saying things like, if they publicly fought, it would be the falling out of a pair of cocksuckers.
Oh. You know, I don't know. What's worse these days? Like, I mean, I guess a letter you could burn and there would be no evidence. Like, I was going to say, what's worse? Like, being caught with email and, like, sending emails to people that can just be pulled up, or, you know, you're keeping your letters and not burning shit like that.
I don't know. Now, Crow was alarmed. He said, I have heard of a son of a bitch being used as a term of endearment. He said, but I have never heard of a man calling another man a cocksucker. Cool. Leopold was basically like that. It's a thing.
That's
it's
not
thing.
Okay. That's weird.
He's like, it's a thing. But the shoe was finally about to drop when the family chauffeur was interviewed. He said that Leopold, the family had 5 cars.
In the 1920s.
Yeah. There was no way Leopold was out on May 21st killing Bobby because he was working on the brakes of his red Willis Knight. The car hadn't even left the garage. He thought he was helping. He wasn't.
No.
Obviously, because Leopold couldn't have been out drunk and picking up girls in that car, right? Because it was getting work done. The chauffeur was certain about the date because his wife had taken their sick daughter to the doctor and got the prescription filled that morning, and the bottle had the date on it. So he knew.
I guess that's...
So he also remembered that Loeb on May 22nd and his friend Leopold was cleaning stains out of the seats and the floorboards of a different car.
Oh, because they murdered him in that car.
One he had never seen before.
Oh.
After the interviewing officer reported this to Crow, Crow knew Loeb was his best angle. He was the weaker one. He was going to crack. So Crow told him about the chauffeur. Loeb said he was lying. That's a
valid response. He lying.
He was like,
he broke, he poor. I'm rich. I'm clearly telling the truth.
I don't know what he's talking about. Another attorney in the room then mentioned that they knew they were lying about the alibi. They knew they had a second car. They knew the glasses belonged to Leopold. And the ransom note matched the typewriter Leopold once used, and plus his handwriting matched the ransom envelope. Loeb was like, my God, this is terrible. He confessed.
Right on the face, like, well, I mean, you know, you give me all this evidence. Fuck it. I might as well go ahead and
never mind. You're right. You win.
I get a deal?
Leopold stood firm when he was questioned. Leopold was like, Let me ask you a hypothetical question. Supposing John Doe had committed this murder and John Doe's family was as wealthy and influential as mine is and could hire able lawyers and get a friendly judge and bribe the jury. Don't you think he could beat it? Crow was like,
no, he didn't.
Well, Nathan, I'll let you try to find out.
I love this response. I like Crow.
Leopold said, what do you mean?
You going to jail, my boy.
Crow said, I'm going to charge you with murder. He was like, why? You don't have anything on me except some flimsy circumstances that will never do. And then Crow was like, you don't know Nathan Leopold. Your pal Dick Loeb is telling the details of the murder.
Right now.
Literally.
He's confessing.
He said, no, my God, he's not doing that. He'll stay until hell freezes over. Crow said, he's saying everything. He talking, cuh. I hate to break it to you. Crow proceeded to tell him everything that Loeb was saying. Leopold lit a cigarette, said, well, if Loeb is talking, I'll tell you the real truth.
Oh, okay. So now let's get to his side of the story.
Bobby Frank's killers have been caught. Yes.
They're caught.
Yep. So we could do this. This is not going to be a part 2. Okay, let's go. So we could talk about Richard and Nathan Loeb, their relationship. Richard Albert Loeb was born June 11th, 1905 in Chicago. He was one of 4 sons. Now, his parents, Anna Henrietta and Albert Henry Loeb, Albert Loeb was a wealthy lawyer and a retired VP of Sears and Roebuck.
Okay.
Rich. So because Albert was beaten by his own father, he wanted his children to grow up in a loving household.
Valid.
Because of his work, though, he was distant and he didn't play with his children. He rarely saw them.
Okay.
So,
Roebucks.
Yeah. So Annie, or Anna, you said that.
I know.
Roebucks, and I said Annie. Anna Loeb, the mom, had incredibly high standards and expected a lot from the children, even though she left them to be raised by other people. Normal.
Rich people stuff.
Loeb was mostly raised by nurses and governesses. He never went to his mother for anything. And so while the neglect was benign, it was still neglect.
Yeah.
He was convinced that family didn't care for him. He was
Don't sound like they did.
Yeah. I mean, and he was the 3rd child, so he was often overlooked and excluded from activities. He got attention and validation from Anna Struthers, his governess, but she wasn't good for him as she was overbearing and she was very possessive. She taught him that the Loebs preferred the other sons.
Oh.
And she tried to turn Loeb against the rest of the family.
She was trying. That sounds like some grooming.
Especially the mother. So, in short, he learned to obey her. So she pushed him beyond reasonable expectations, and it was her unreasonable expectations that led him to the University of Chicago Elementary School.
Oh, okay.
3rd grade by age 7.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know.
Yeah,
but,
I think 7 is like usually 1st grade.
Yeah, I mean,
kindergarten is 5. First would be 6. Second would be okay. So he's like a year ahead.
Okay. He even had his own journal called Richard's Magazine.
Dope.
That Albert Loeb showed Julius Rosenwald, who's in my script, by the way. Julius Rosenwald is. Ooh. Who then showed it to Teddy Roosevelt.
It's reality.
Loeb was extremely smart. He was a voracious reader of history and historical fiction, but would sneak off to read crime novels.
Okay.
So during this time, he also learned to lie to avoid punishment. So he would follow people, which he called shadowing. He would steal just to show how smart he was.
Oh.
The idea of being caught, arrested, and punished was starting to excite him. He's
a sociopath.
Yeah. So, needless to say,
we're trying to get attention too, though, because that's very much what a child does. Like, I'm looking for attention, so I'm going to do anything to get. Pay attention to me.
Needless to say, by 12, he was admitted into the University of Chicago High School lab.
Okay.
He struggled. He kind of acted like a punk, according to his classmates. He was too young for the environment, honestly. His governesses pushed him, his governess, Anna Struthers, pushed him, and he was done in 2 years.
Whoa.
The goal set by his parents was for him to graduate in 2 years so he could take a trip to Europe. But then they reneged when they thought about how young he would be prancing around in Europe.
You're like 16, 15,
Yeah,
14.
like,
he said 12. He's like,
yeah,
he's like 14, 15. You're like, no, you ain't going to Europe.
Exactly. Like, you ain't going. So the 1926 copy of the Leopold and Loeb case, according to that, quote, until he was 14 years of age, Richard Loeb had been completely under the control and domination of a governess. At 14, he ceased to be his governess, and at that time, he entered college. It's fucked up. So it's that language. It was at this time when he had reached puberty and was approaching adolescence. It was at this time when he was taken from that home shelter, from the shelter of this governess, and from her domination and control, from the woman who up to that time had solved all of his problems with the world. That was gone. And he suddenly was put in an environment, a 14-year-old boy in college associated with boys of 18, 19, 20, and 21, facing the necessity for life, meeting as these boys and young men were meeting life, and thereby being put in a position where excessive demands for adjustments to life would be suddenly placed on him. He already had started as a child as a schizophrenic personality whose tendency towards schizophrenia had been cultured and fostered by the particular type of care and attention and lack of understanding which he had received from his governess.
But also, like, putting a 14-year-old in an environment with a bunch of
adults,
grown men, is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I always think that, like, when you look at, like, child prodigies, like, so you're taking their child away, like, not saying, like, don't encourage their genius, but, like,
they should be in other spaces with other gifted children.
And I know they're further in between, but, like, far and in between, but still, like, I don't know. I just feel like, you know, graduating college with a master's at 18 and, like, finishing,
and being in an adult space is crazy.
It was weird.
Yeah, it is weird. By college, it was time to let the governess go. As a gift, they said she could stay, but she'd have to work with his younger brother instead. But she refused, and they let her go. And
she was like, nah, I like him.
Yeah, exactly. And when she left, he kind of broke loose. He began to kind of just pass. There was no discipline. He picked up drinking to fit in. And when Loeb was 15, he lost his virginity in a brothel. He caught gonorrhea.
Didn't everybody back then?
Once cured, he joined friends to get prostitutes or to just get girls. But then he had no interest in sex. He kind of became asexual. He struggled to maintain meaningful relationships. He would just befriend people and then just drop them. He was kind of distant, cold to some people. Overall,
socially awkward.
Yeah, overall, regardless of all of this, people thought Loeb was sweet. He was gentle, he was considerate, he was charismatic, he was handsome. They thought he had a bright future ahead of him. How he met Leopold, though, is still a bit blurry, but their relationship started off in 1920 and took a very provocative turn pretty quickly. Nathan Freudenthal Leopold was born November 19th. He was a Scorpio in 1904 in Chicago. He was also the third son of his parents, Florence and Nathan Leopold Sr. Now, Nathan Sr. was a millionaire owner of Morris Paper Company and the Fiber Can Corporation. And Florence was the daughter of a wealthy Chicago banker and member of the German Jewish elite. But after Leopold's birth, Florence had several miscarriages, and then she contracted nephritis, which is similar to lupus. It's like an autoimmune disorder. It's like an inflammation of the kidneys. So Leopold was raised by his nannies and nurses. So he wasn't...
What's the difference between a governess and a nanny or a nurse?
They're kind of the same, honestly.
Okay,
yeah, but I think a governess is more of like leading you on a path of like...
Okay.
I was about to say righteousness, but
like it's
society,
it's
a societal path, not just like raising you to be a child type thing.
Yeah, it's more of
she was
structured
exactly
kind of environment. Like
Yeah, like a member
I'm
of
governing
society.
you.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't close to his father. He also treated Leopold differently than the others. His father used to pick on him a lot. He felt a stronger bond with his sickly mother, who, because of her condition, spent a lot of time in bed. She was bedridden. Leopold was incredibly gifted. He first spoke at 4 months.
What?
He walked by 14 months.
Okay, that sounds normal, but they talked at 4 months? That's crazy.
That's crazy. He said his first prayer in German by 3.
Whoa.
His governesses thought he was a bit mean, though, with a penchant for theft. At a young age, he started studying birds or ornithology, but he also started shooting at them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that thin line between genius and insanity.
Yeah, his dad was buying him guns and shit, you know.
At 6.
He later studied taxidermy, which
is, again, sociopathic.
Yeah. He once shot a bird in a neighbor's yard and almost hit a servant, and he didn't care at all.
No regard for life.
His dad just thought boys will be boys, you know.
Sounds about right.
By 6, Leopold was teased when he accidentally enrolled in an all-girls school because it was a co-ed school, but there was only 2 boys in there because most of the boys had left.
He enrolled himself at 6?
No, his family did.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I was like,
No, his family did. But they enrolled him in a co-ed school, and then like it was still like co-ed, but there were really mostly girls there. But he was pulled out and enrolled in Douglas Public School instead. But having a governess was unique. He was teased for having a governess and because he was being escorted to and from school. Additionally, he was told he couldn't use the bathrooms while he was there, so he peed on himself. That got him teased. His mother
use the bathroom.
Well, because also his mother didn't want him associated with Negroes and tough boys. It was a public school, so they didn't want him to use the bathroom. They didn't think the school was good enough for him.
So they were rich. Why was they? Okay, so he's going to a public school that was integrated?
Yeah.
In the 20s?
Yeah.
Okay.
In Hyde Park. He was living in Hyde Park at this point. And so, well, and you know what's interesting too is it's kind of like, and there isn't a lot when I was reading this book, because I didn't mention the book I was reading. It'll be in the show notes, but they didn't really mention race because Kenwood was so heavily Jewish. But that was really the only moment that I heard.
About.
Yeah,
okay.
that
makes sense.
His mom,
Chicago's already it's still very segregated. Yeah. So like I would have assumed then it would be even more segregated,
for sure.
And then segregated by class.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And Kenwood would, and just like now, Hyde Park is its own little community,
it is
own world.
Very integrated.
Kenwood was very,
like,
very much so. I got to sneeze. Oh shit. Do I? Okay, I'm good. So, but yeah, she didn't want him, which is funny. It's kind of like, yeah, you didn't want him hanging around Negroes and like awful boys, and he ended up being a murderer, but whatever.
So just homeschool him so he can go pee.
Thank you. And then, so she ended up pulling him out of the public school, ended up putting him back in the girls' school, which I'm like, okay.
Oh, that had to be social. That was okay.
2 years later, she ended up putting him back in the public school. It's like, girl, you doing a lot. And the teacher arranged for him to skip a grade. He was bullied constantly. He also had a unibrow, which
we can fix that.
It's like, okay. He was lonely. He was deeply insecure. He was kind of funny looking. But what he started to realize was that he was rich. He was starting to realize he was rich. He didn't fit in because everybody else was poor.
You know.
Yep. He suppressed his emotions. He fell into his affluence. He chose to care very little about others at that point.
I mean, if you've been picked on, and like isolated,
he was like, "I got money though, broke bitch." Like that's kind of what was.
I think
next.
I'd have been opposite because I'm not a sociopath. I'd have been like, "I got money. You want to be my friend?"
Yeah, exactly.
At that age, like
let's party.
Let's go party.
Yeah, I would have just hooked everybody to drugs.
Something.
Basically, I would have just been Diddy.
Want to go do something? Yeah. No Diddy.
No Diddy. So then he just wasn't a boy's boy either. Like that was a thing. He wasn't into sports. He was bullied all the time. He had a difficult time making friends. It was kind of sad. I'm not gonna lie.
No, because I mean he was gay.
Yeah, basically, yes.
Which sucks
he was gay.
In the 20s.
He was
gay. Being
gay was not
in the 90s, 2000s was hard.
So but wait till he finds himself, because he where there's a will, there's a way.
As
Okay.
especially when you got some money.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. He suppressed his emotions, but he became arrogant. So it was easier that way. When the family moved to Kenwood from Hyde Park, Leopold joined the Harvard School.
You made that sound like it was so far away.
Yeah, I did.
But like
it's like across the street.
2 blocks away.
So when he moved to Kenwood, it kind of feels different.
No, it is.
Because
Like,
Kenwood is so highly residential. Like there's nothing commercial there. It's all mansions. No.
I'm saying, was there anything commercial in Hyde Park back then? Because I feel like downtown Hyde Park is just now becoming a thing.
Yeah,
like, there wasn't.
I don't know though. I didn't research it. I didn't research Hyde Park.
I feel like at one point Hyde Park was very.
Yeah, for sure. Because really, Hyde Park mostly exists because of the Columbian Exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I feel like besides 53rd Street, it's not highly.
But the museum had always been there and things like that. Yeah. So they had parks. Yes. And then they had the lake. Okay. Kenwood is kind of just like a big neighborhood. Yeah. So he moved to Kenwood. He joins the Harvard School for Boys. But at that time, they thought he had an IQ of 210.
Oh, isn't that like bigger? Higher than like.
Yeah, this would later be disputed. Okay, clearly. Let's relax.
So I was like, that's
This would be disputed, but he was still very, very bright. He was very rebellious. By 1910, his new governess, Matilda Wantz, did all she could to drive a wedge between him and his mother. The new governess, she did the same thing. These governesses suck. The new governess even began abusing Leopold and his brother, Sam. She regularly played with the brother's penis. Okay. She took them into her
predators
bathtub.
Go in places where they can be predators.
Yes. She took them into her bathtub. She showed them her nude body. She wrestled naked with them.
How old are these governesses? Like,
they didn't give ages of these stupid bitches. These just gross women. While she was okay. Trigger warning.
Yeah, that's weird.
She showed them her used sanitary napkins. She even convinced Leopold to lay on top of her naked while she was face down, instructing him to rub his penis in between her legs. This lasted until he was 12.
It's probably why he's gay.
Yeah,
well, probably not, but like
maybe I don't know. But
yeah, but
confusion.
there can be confusion, exactly.
But and I think I even write that Florence eventually fired her when she caught her just handling them roughly. But the parents were never told of the sexual abuse, and it was believed that this drove a wedge between the brothers. They had this secret. From then on, Leopold was never attracted to the opposite sex. Never really attracted to women.
Because he was traumatized.
Yeah. By 1916, he was developing crushes on males.
By that was what? So he's like 16, 17 at that point?
Well, by 1916.
He was born, because he was born in 1905.
1905. Right? He's 11.
I guess you're hitting puberty. So, I guess that's where you kind of start having...
Yep. Feelings.
Yeah.
He was fantasizing about them. Unfortunately, the American Psychiatric Association classified homosexuality as a mental illness. But still, Leopold was staying at a friend's house, learning how to masturbate. He even had a jar with him to save his friend's ejaculate.
That's weird.
That's a lot. Then it's like I don't even know what to do with that. But then finally they started masturbating each other, and this was his first gay experience. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm thinking like
it is what it is. But at least he's getting it out healthily. It's not a grown man.
No, yeah, 100%. Like it's two kids experimenting.
Now the two formed a secret club where boys with the same appetites could get together.
Okay.
And masturbate. They started tying each other up though.
Oh, they got kinky quick.
What?
I don't understand.
Did I say that this was in the 19th?
Yeah. So okay. So now I get it, right? So you're overexposed. It's super easy access to pornography. Mm-hmm. It's on your phone. It's everywhere. But in 1910, it wasn't a bunch of nudie magazines. Where are you getting these ideas of tying people up and being all extra kinky?
The feeling.
The governesses.
Well, what they get it from is Hitler and Germans. They were getting it from the war.
No, the war hadn't even started yet. It was
World War
1910.
One. No, you're right. Because
we haven't even hit World War One yet.
That's true. Because I'm thinking of when he starts really getting sadistic.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not at this point. You're right. Him tying up and things like that at this age.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, no, that's a little early.
My kinks didn't come in until like I was well into my 20s.
And I also, I mean,
and
this isn't the first time. Like, this is not the first episode either, where there was someone who heard of a story from someone, and I'm just going back to the war thing real quick, where like they heard of a war story or they were reading books from a war
and they got turned
on from the grotesqueries of war.
That's valid. I know of a story of somebody who used to want to masturbate to violent videos on the internet.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
yeah,
creepy.
for sure. I mean, I think,
too.
Oh, really?
It was a woman that I know. I won't say any names because, I'll tell you I'll tell you after this.
I look, and here's what I will say to that. I'm not going to say that it's okay, but what I will say is that
get it out in a healthy way.
You are getting it out in the healthiest way that you can.
Because if violence turns you on, that means you're probably one step away from
actually committing the crime.
Yeah.
See that? Well, and
in theory,
here's the thing about that. This is where I am with that. It's a slippery slope. That's the only problem.
Because eventually
because what you can, especially when it comes to real violence.
Yeah.
Like if you are a person that enjoys watching other people get tied up in pornography, knowing that it's fake, that's different.
Yeah.
If you enjoy deep, dark web, real stuff, that's different.
That's when you start watching the stuff that you know is fake, eventually
you'll escalate.
You escalate, right? It's like necrophilia. You hear about people who, pay prostitutes to, pretend to be dead.
Yeah, that's
Then you start having them escalate to like sitting in an ice bath until their body is
stone cold.
And then all of a sudden now you're inside of somebody's morgue or strangling people, or maybe you start in the morgue and they're like, okay, now it's like, actually that's a little, I need the fresh death.
Yeah, that's true.
No,
you're 100% right. It's true. There is and it's hard. You don't know how far it goes until you're there. Because some people got their limit. They're like, I am not interested in a corpse.
Because I think part of it is or you start putting the two together. It's one and the same. It's kind of like if you do something during sex, it's kind of even like porn. Like if you are constantly a person that masturbates while watching porn.
Yes.
Now it's like, I cannot masturbate unless I'm watching porn.
Yep.
Or even I know for a lot of gay men, poppers.
Yes.
Is a thing. I know poppers is a thing in general, but there are some gay men that now I know that they cannot have sex without having poppers. They don't get satisfied without it. And I was like,
look, and full disclosure, vibrators.
Yeah. Masturbation in itself, it can
if you overuse that type of stimulation that does not happen naturally in that environment. When you are in that natural environment, you're like, is this?
I've heard
can
dudes
this
say
be achieved?
Yeah, I've heard dudes say no, I masturbate after the person leaves, or even
women do too.
Yeah, or straight.
Yeah.
Well, see, women.
Well, women do before too.
Yeah, but see, in women, I understand a little bit more, right? Because most women don't
achieve orgasm during sex.
They don't orgasm during penetration. So if it's, I get it, right? You're like, okay, you've been pleased, you've not, but in theory. No, clearly, just because a man comes doesn't necessarily mean they orgasm.
That's true.
But it's still a difference. But if you're not orgasming from coming and having sex with a woman, she has to leave, and then you got to masturbate too.
Yeah, that's
a little weird. It's kind of
or
excessive. It's definitely speaking to something that's wrong.
Yeah. And sometimes
Sex
I just wonder if your
addiction
partner, if you just got the wrong partner, because
if
you
that's part of it
sleeping
too,
with
right?
somebody
because
and then you got to masturbate after.
It might not be sex. It might be something else you're craving.
That's true.
Like
100%.
especially if you masturbate, they leave and there's no intimate.
Exactly.
And now you're really
it
chasing
could be
intimacy.
a lack of intimacy, or it could be a lack of like maybe power, because you know some people like being more controlled.
Yeah.
I mean, like more control, or they like a little more roughness or whatever.
Yeah, you just weren't satisfied.
And it's
100%.
like I'm just not satisfied with that experience.
I mean, there's times I've had sex and then been like, damn. Like I hooked up with somebody on some random or like,
and you're like,
or somebody even
enough.
regular. Like I was like, okay, like that was fun. But now I'm like, oh crap, and I've had to stop and be like, am I horny or am I missing some other? So yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, we went on a whole
Wait
other
until
thing.
like we're drinking.
It's cool. Okay, so now they formed this secret club. Now Leopold knew of someone who accidentally like put muscle liniment on his penis, and he tried it on like a partner.
Wait, who?
So Leopold. So they were like trying different stuff. They were tying up people.
No muscle. Who?
Liniment, like a muscle
relaxer.
Yeah, like
a numbing cream.
Like the like the cooling stuff like your granny used to use.
That doesn't seem like that would feel good.
Just imagine putting Noxzema on your penis.
I don't know if that's what I would like. Okay.
But he realized that he liked the control. He liked inflicting a little bit of pain. He was a little sadistic. And he tried it on his partners, and he enjoyed their agony. And so before he knew it, he had a group of like 7 or 8 friends, and they would come and they would be, beat off together.
Where were these 7 and 8 gay boys when I was growing up and being gay and I couldn't find any of them?
What? Fuck them up. I don't know.
I wasn't playing sports. I always say I should have played sports, like, because they was in the locker room.
You're like, I don't know. I mean, he was sadistic. He just, look, this is my thing.
Not that I was looking for statistics.
I hate, this is going to be a weird way to start this sentence. I give Leopold a little credit. Hear me out.
Okay. No, let's go.
Okay. He's operating within truth. This is why he found his people.
No, 100%.
People who
they were consensual.
They were consensual.
Well, I guess legally, they were all children.
They were all the same age.
Well,
they were all the same age.
Yeah, but I mean, but still, I think legally you can't. Like, so if two,
we ain't talking about that.
I know, but yeah, so
they were all children.
They were all children. Yes, they were consensual. We're not going to go into legality.
They were all kids. But regardless, I mean, should they be doing this? Probably not. But they were all children.
They also died at like 40 back then, so
he only had one life to live. He only had 20 years.
He only got 20 years to go.
But I will say this. The fact that he was true in the way he lived and was honest about who he was the reason. Once he figured out who he was, his craziness is what led him to his people. That's the cool thing about crazy people. So is that how serial
killers find each other?
Yeah.
Because they just living in their truth?
They just be like, I do what I do and I like what I like. You either with it or you ain't.
I guess that's valid.
And if I scare you, the people who are fearful of me are just gonna leave. Stay away. And the people who rock with me are just gonna stay.
To be that young,
that's crazy.
But to be that young and then find other people that young,
the other people who are that young, now we don't know what happened with them. They probably just thought it was a phase, did they thing, got married and left. Maybe. You know what I mean? Or they continued their gay lives.
We don't know what happened to them, but I'm just saying, like,
who knows?
12, like I'm not letting you. I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
But I'm just saying, like, they could have just like did that thing and been like, that was like a weird thing I did when I was 12, and then they moved on from it, or whatever. Or maybe they were being abused by Leopold. I don't know. We reading the book. We weren't there.
Valid.
But at the end of the day, like the fact that he found these people to do this, like 7 or 8 people to just 12. Circle jerk with, is crazy town in the 1920s.
Yeah, like, now I wouldn't be that shocked. Like, there's apps for that.
Yeah. There's Craigslist. Like that's
but
not
in
hard.
19 when it was considered to be so taboo.
Yeah, for sure. And
illegal in some places even.
I mean, it was a mental illness to be. Yeah. So he was definitely walking a thin line of insanity. I think
in some states in Illinois, sodomy is still on the books.
Yeah, for sure. Or some
version of sodomy being illegal. Like it's not enforced. And maybe their last one is done now. I mean, there's I was reading some random law, like it was illegal to frown in Utah, Salt Lake City or something like that.
Shit like that's probably some Mormon shit.
Yeah, something to that degree.
But I mean, you found 7 people that rock with you enough to enjoy this experience with you, and good. I guess good for you. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know because I don't know their side of the story. They could have been having an awful time, but he enjoyed this. He even liked the idea. Now, he did have this weird thing where he wanted to crucify somebody, and yes, like Jesus. That's a lot. That's
a bit much.
He really wanted to dominate. His thing was he was the king, not the slave. That is what it was about.
That's from being tormented at a younger age.
100%.
And now it's the reverse of like
100%. Now, Leopold later entered the University of Chicago at 15, the actual school.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. His father thought Leopold was off-putting and would downplay his accomplishments just to extinguish his ego. He was like, you kind of an asshole. And so Leopold...
He was like, okay, I'm going to put you in your place.
So Leopold got into a lot of trouble. He broke rules. He shot birds. He got into trouble for speeding in his parents' cars. He also, he wasn't physically attractive. It's unfortunate, but he wasn't. He was weird. He was polite-ish. He was mild-mannered. He was arrogant mostly, but kind of funny. But he also felt dangerous, which a lot of people were like, yeah, I ain't really rocking with the dangerous part.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that these two would meet and develop a bit of a relationship, but they weren't much alike. Loeb was charismatic and cute. Leopold was not. Now that Loeb, his parents owned this like really nice property on Lake Pine in Charlevoix. I think that's how you pronounce it, in northern Michigan. Loeb would spend time there, and the two of them would take a train up there in the winter of 1921, and this is where they had their first sexual encounter. And Leopold rubbed his penis in between his legs, while Loeb laid naked, which is how he used to do his governance. And so Loeb was pretty asexual. So he was a people pleaser, and he was like, whatever. And so Leopold, he lost his shit. Leopold found Loeb very attractive. He was just, he was like, just touching him on the shoulder sent him like a shiver through him.
I've never met anybody that did that to me.
He said, this is what he said. This shit was crazy. He said that he was even jealous of the food and drink that Loeb consumed because he could never share such intimacy. Nigga, what?
Did he want to be ate?
Huh?
Did he want to be eaten? I'm so confused here. Like,
wait a minute.
Okay.
Leopold dictated the terms, though, and was always the aggressor. And he always wanted a repeat of what happened on the train. So he put his penis in between Loeb's legs until he orgasmed. He always wanted him to do that. And he preferred the rape fantasy, this furiously passionate fantasy. And so Loeb went along with it because it required nothing of him to do any of it because he was asexual. Leopold wanted this. He wanted the control. He wanted the power. And Loeb was like, whatever. Sure. So Leopold had fantasies of tying someone up, of raping them, of murdering them. The relationship was satisfying for both of them. Because for Loeb, he was not required to measure up to anything. He could just be who he already was. He accepted the worship. He was flattered, and he was still appreciated flaws and all. And for Leopold, he was able to truly love, or what he thought that was, and indulge himself in a warped sense of control to take over a person who is, 1, better looking, 2, more charismatic, and 3, more popular. Leopold said, quote, Dick possessed more of the truly fine qualities than almost anyone I have ever known. He really liked him.
Okay, put him on a pedestal.
Leopold admired Loeb. He tried to mimic him. He just couldn't get enough of him. Loeb began to create
everything he wanted to be.
Yep. Loeb began to create his own fantasies with Leopold where they would like commit these crimes together. Like Loeb was kind of like wild and impulsive. Loeb was looking for a partner in crime. He liked the thrill of stealing.
Yeah, he wanted to like.
So they started leaving out late at night and shoplifting and committing crimes and like vandalizing cars and shit. So once in Charlevoix, they got caught sleeping together on a porch by a UFC student who was working on the farm for the summer. And Leopold thought of many ways to torture the student if he told on them. And they were worried about blackmail or exposure, and they seriously considered killing this student. And they invited the student on a boat, intentionally planning on like capsizing the boat if he couldn't swim. But it turns out the kid could.
He's like, well, I guess that's not going to work.
So he immediately told Loeb's brother he caught them in bed. They denied it. The brother was like, no way. He got gonorrhea. Not too long ago from that prostitute. It's impossible.
He's attractive. He has all the, like, no.
The Loebs ended up firing the kid, but he ended up going back to campus and telling everyone that he found Leopold and Loeb in bed, nearly fucking naked. Rumors began to circulate on campus, and Loeb tried his best to just ignore it and focus on his social life because, you know, Loeb wanted more freedom. So he transferred to the University of Michigan in 1921, and Leopold didn't want to be separated. So they shared an apartment in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But unfortunately, his mother eventually passed away from nephritis. And Leopold felt like, quote, my presence was the cause of her absence because she contracted nephritis after having him. The death of his mother changed Leopold completely. And on his next visit to see Loeb in Michigan, he was different. He was more cold. He cut the emotion. People didn't think Leopold was a genius because they thought he was weird as shit. Like, being a genius wasn't cool. It was
I mean, it's not cool now.
Yeah. Loeb just... He wanted to be normal. Leopold wasn't in Michigan a lot, so Loeb was spending a lot of time with like new people. He was making new friends, and this didn't bother Loeb. He just enjoyed not being around Leopold that much.
Got it.
And so he decided that he wanted to join an all-Jewish, Loeb did. He decided that he wanted to join an all-Jewish fraternity, but they had heard that he was a little gay. And so they decided, like, they were like, yeah, we don't even get down like that. We decided against letting you join. So Loeb's brother stepped in and they offered him an opportunity, but they said that you got to stop kicking it with Leopold though.
Okay.
And so this was not a hard decision for Loeb.
He was like, done.
He was like, okay. And eventually Loeb, Leopold, feeling left out, he left Ann Arbor and went back to UFC.
That sucks.
It is kind of sad, but Leopold's a nut.
100%. But like, also he probably got nuttier by, people just kept like dismissing him.
Oh, he gets nutty. So Loeb moved into the frat house. Honestly, they were both intellectually lazy and entirely too young to be there. Loeb was 17. He was a drunk. Leopold was about to turn 18 at this point. Neither one was really there to do anything.
Because they were 17 and 18 in college.
And they were just studying things to study. They had no real reason. Loeb kind of liked history. Leopold was like kind of fond of anything to stand out. Like, for example, Leopold liked an Italian poet named Pietro Aretino who wrote about bestiality. He just liked it because it was fucked up. He especially liked German philosopher Nietzsche. Now, he really liked him because he was popular after World War I. But Nietzsche wrote a book in 1883 called Thus Spoke Zarathustra, where he writes about the Übermensch.
Which I've heard of that before.
Yeah, you probably have because it's super popular. The Übermensch is AKA the Superman or the higher types. The idea that the exceptional individual could create their own values.
Okay.
And rise above conventional morality. So they're not bound by society rules and they master their own purpose. Elon Musk much? Peter Thiel much? Then there was the idea that God is dead, that traditional religion.
Valid. He is dead.
He is. Well, he's never alive.
He's never alive. Depending. Jesus was. If you depends on who you think God is.
Yeah, exactly. That traditional religion no longer held power over modern life, leaving people to find them meaning themselves. I mean, I don't 100%
I don't disagree with that. Actually,
Nietzsche.
like,
I mean, if philosophy is just it's wild like that. But most people who knew Leopold knew that he had a fucked up sense of superiority, that he was different, and that he lacked empathy. And Leopold used Nietzsche to explain why he was the way he was and to make it make sense. So classmates said that he took these philosophies to heart. He did not believe he could do any wrong. He believed the only wrong was what could not give him happiness.
Okay, so he's a
hedonist
sadist or hedonist.
Yeah, both. If murdering someone gave him pleasure, so be it.
Okay.
One classmate said Nathan insisted that if he killed someone, he could not be held responsible. Now, sir, and even though he felt he was superior, he elevated Loeb. He thought Loeb was an Ubermensch. He could do no wrong. Loeb could do no wrong. He tried to push Loeb into the philosophy, and Loeb just wasn't in it. He was like, I really don't care about this shit.
I'm good.
I'm sick of you. I'm sick of Nietzsche. I'm sick of all of this. Like, y'all both can go to hell.
Wrong is wrong.
By 1923, Loeb graduated with a BA from University of Michigan. He was the youngest to graduate in the school's history at 17. He would eventually return to the University of Chicago for grad school. This was also the year Loeb got a pair of spiffy new frames from Almer & Co. Or Leopold, excuse me. What one of them niggas?
Somebody got some glasses.
Jesus Christ.
Only 3 of them were sold in Chicago.
Oh my God. Now I'm like, wait, was it Leopold? Was Loeb? Did I write that right? Leopold graduated from U of C with plans to attend Harvard Law School with that summer. But they would go back to doing their random crimes. Stealing.
You're rich. One of y'all are attractive. Why are we stealing?
Calling false alarms and setting fires. Setting fires is
okay. That's
one of them. That's one of those things.
Sexual.
What do they call it? The something triad. Where they yeah. Loeb was bored with the Nietzsche talk though, and he was over Leopold. He wanted other friends. Leopold was getting jealous. The sex was hitting. It wasn't hidden either. Yeah. He was like, nigga. So Leopold didn't want to lose his power. So to spice it up, one night in a game of poker, Leopold thought, hey, maybe the loser should kill himself.
Okay, that's a steep bet.
Yeah. And Leopold was unraveling. Loeb was getting a little nervous. Loeb was actually
nervous.
Loeb was actually so sick of Leopold that he thought about killing himself. He was like, maybe I should just kill Leopold, though. Maybe.
Or just go to Boston. I'm confused. Just go to law school.
Just leave. Then finally things got heated between the two when Loeb decided to spend New York with a friend instead of Leopold. And Leopold decided to write a letter. This was a letter discovered by the police after the Franks murder. I'm not going to read this whole fucking letter because it is long. This nigga was verbose, to say the very least. But I'm going to read the
highlighted parts, like list the.
I didn't even highlight it. I was going to read all of it.
Highlights of the.
Yes. So basically, he says, "Dear Dick, in view of our former relations, I take it for granted that it is unnecessary to make any excuse for writing to you at this time, and still am going to state my reasons for doing so, as this may turn out to be a long letter, and I do not want to cause you the inconvenience of reading it all to find out what it contains if you are not interested in the subjects dealt with. First, I am enclosing the document which I mentioned to you today and which I will explain later, which was basically a document where he says, I, Nathan F. Leopold Jr., being under no duress or compulsion, do hereby affirm and declare that on this day, October 9th, 1923, I I, for reasons of my own, locked the door of the room in which I was, one, Richard A. Leopold, with the intent of blocking his only feasible mode of egress, and that I further indicated my intention of applying physical force upon the person of the said Richard A. Loeb, if necessary to carry out my design, to wit, to block his only feasible mode of egress.
The way they spoke so eloquently
like,
back
nigga.
then. Like,
Second, I am going to tell you of a new fact which has come up since our discussion. And third, I am going to put in writing what my attitude is toward our present relations with a view of avoiding future misunderstanding. And in the hope, which I think is rather vain, that possibly we may have misunderstood each other and can yet clear this matter up.
okay.
Now, as to the first, I want you this afternoon, and still want you to feel that we are on equal footing legally, and therefore I purposely committed the same tort of which you were legal or guilty, the only difference but being that in your case, the facts would be harder to prove than in mine should I deny them. The enclosed document should secure you against changing my mind and admitting the facts if the matter should come up. He basically is writing this whole letter, basically like, we need to decide if we're going to be friends. You did stuff. I did stuff. We know what we both did. I don't want this friendship to end. You don't want this friendship to end. Do you?
Do you? Do you? Because if it do, it's not going to end well. That's what that sounds like.
And then he even does the whole thing of like, I'm not even wanting to threaten you.
But I'm going to.
This ain't a threat, actually. But it kind of is, but it kind of ain't. But it kind of feels like it, but it isn't.
It's indirect.
He goes, now, Dick, I'm going to make a request to which I have perhaps no right, and yet which I dare to make also for Auld Lang Syne. Will you, if not too inconvenient, let me know your answer before I leave? Which is basically him saying, are we cool?
Are we cool yet, dude?
Or nah?
I love the way they talk. Like back in the day, it was just like, why is it so poetic, so accidentally? He goes,
let me know your answer before I leave tomorrow on the last count. This to which I have no right would greatly help my peace of mind in the next few days when it is most necessary to me. You can, if you will, merely call up my house or my home before 12 noon and leave a message saying, Dick says yes. If you wish our relations to continue as before, and Dick says no, if not.
That's Dick says yes, Dick says no.
Loeb responded that he wished to continue a relationship. It's obvious that Loeb was losing his shit. And then he proceeds the next day to leave an entire new letter that I am not going to read because it is too fucking long. But he goes into an entire thing and it is excruciatingly long. Loeb submitted to Leopold constantly. Leopold obviously dictated the terms of the relationship. It was abusive.
Interesting.
They remained friends and they were back to committing.
Since Loeb seems to be more societally acceptable and as normal as possible. So to let it makes me wonder what kind of psychological issues he has that he's letting this perceived to be lesser than person.
It boils down to the fact that Loeb is societal. That is the problem.
Yeah.
Loeb is the normal-ish one. And he knows that they have done a lot of stuff together. And what they are fearful of is that society, Leopold is crazy. Mm-hmm. He could blackmail me.
Yeah.
He could say that we did all this crazy stuff together. We have had gay sex. We have been stealing stuff together.
Burning things down.
Burning stuff. Talking about doing all this wild stuff. This dude has so much against me. He could ruin my life.
Yeah. 100% my reputation.
And he's crazy enough to do it. I think Richard Loeb was willing to walk away from Leopold and just be like, leave me alone.
Yeah, leave me alone.
But he knew Leopold was never going to do that.
We're bonded for life now.
Now, Loeb submitted to him. They remained friends. They were back to committing crimes. They took a trip to Michigan where they broke into some frat houses. And one thing to mention on these trips, they would take a chisel wrapped in tape, just in case they had to bludgeon someone and guns, just in case shit got real.
Okay.
So this wasn't just
people.
this wasn't just petty crime. This could potentially get violent if it needed to be. They robbed one frat house and they stole what? Yes, an Underwood typewriter. They drove 6 hours back to Chicago, where Leopold unleashed on Loeb, calling him a coward, that he abandoned the second frat house because Loeb robbed the first frat house. They were supposed to rob the second frat house. Loeb got scared because he thought that he heard somebody snoring, and he left. He was like, never mind. And he left.
Go.
Leopold
again, I don't want to be caught.
Yeah, he was like, I don't want to be caught. Leopold snapped and just started talking about how they don't have sex anymore. And then Loeb thought, oh my God, if I end this friendship with Leopold, he could use everything that we did together against me. They agreed that they would stay friends, but under new terms. Leopold agreed that they would do petty thefts. They would have sex, but they would only have sex 3 times every 2 months.
What kind of married couple is this? That's exactly what it sounds like. This is like a disengaged married couple. It's like, okay, we're going to schedule this once a week.
Yeah. So they also agreed to do something else to bond them. Kidnap someone from ransom. Leopold originally wanted to kidnap a girl to live out his rape fantasy from World War I. But it was Loeb who felt it would be better to kidnap a boy. So while Loeb wanted a partner in crime, he didn't calculate that he was actually hanging with a sociopath. And Leopold had dangerous fantasies. All the crimes committed thus far were against property, not people.
Yeah.
This gave Leopold the opportunity to test the Übermensch philosophy. 4 months would go by, no sex, and they were in fear of each other now. The kidnapping plan was in full swing, like it's not completely clear who the leader was, but you could probably guess.
Leopold is definitely the leader.
Yeah, they both began to plan the crime after that. Like, this was supposed to be the perfect crime. First, they needed to do this before Leopold went to Europe. They needed to also do this before he enrolled into Harvard. Then the ransom was difficult because they needed a reason, which wasn't really money. They're rich.
Right. Then, that's the reason I only asked for $10,000 because they was like,
it was like, whatever. Then they needed to drag out the process to make it harder to investigate. So they wrote the letters, had the father picked up by a cab to meet at a certain drop off. Pick up the instructions. The instructions were supposed to be taped inside a keep the city clean trash bin on the sidewalk. That message would
Is there not a movie about this?
Huh?
Is there not a movie made about this?
Like a real one? Not that well, there was The Perfect Crime starring Ryan Gosling, but it was a modern day version.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. The message would direct him to the drugstore, which would then get him to the ringing phone, and then he would then purchase a ticket to Michigan Central, then go to Boston from Illinois Central.
Oh, my kid would have just been dead. I wouldn't have that.
And then the last train car, he would find another message in a telegraph box, then go to the rear platform.
Scavenger hunt is this?
That final message would direct him to watch for the train approaching for the Champion Manufacturing Co. at the 74th Street. And then the company's water tower had the word Champion. And then the father would count to 5 and then toss the ransom from the rear of the train. And then Leopold Loeb would be waiting there to retrieve it. So the train idea, though, came from Loeb, who read about this 1874 kidnapping of Charlie Ross in Philadelphia. 2 men lured Charlie, who was 4, and his brother Walter, who was 5, away for the promise of like candy and fireworks. They drove off with Charlie and later sent ransom notes demanding $20,000, but the brother was let go, but Charlie was never recovered. It created a national panic, and it inspired the phrase, "Don't take candy from strangers."
Oh.
Mm-hmm. This was America's first highly publicized ransom kidnapping, and later 2 suspects were killed during the burglary, and one confessed on his deathbed saying that he kidnapped Charlie and refused to say what happened to him. The case is still unsolved.
Yeah.
So
Dead for real. No
it's
matter what
like,
happens to
you
him now.
bitch.
But like,
So Leopold and Lowe start rehearsing the kidnapping. It's unknown when the murder became part of the plan, but Loeb suggested a person they disliked, but he was too big. When they was like, nah, that nigga too big. Then they thought
he gonna kick our ass.
Nah, exactly. Then they thought about kidnapping their own fathers. Yeah. Leopold considered Richard's brother, Tommy. But Richard actually liked Tommy. He was like, no.
I'm killing my brother.
Bitch. So Leopold didn't care who they picked. Richard Rubel, which was one of Loeb's best friends, mentioned in the letter, which I didn't read, but he was mentioned in the letter. This gave Leopold a tremendous thrill. He was like, that'd be cool, because then you will be his pallbearer. Crazy. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then they thought of picking a boy at random, one from the Harvard School of Boys. His name was Armand Deutsch, who was the grandson of Julius Rosenwald, the president of Sears. Nah, that could harm father's business interests. Not him.
Okay, so we're not total sociopaths. We're thinking through some of this.
Yeah.
We still need to be rich when we're done.
They went through a list of wealthy boys. How they landed on Loeb's second cousin? Who knows? There had been complaints of Bobby being smug, and Bobby had insulted Loeb on the tennis court before the murder, apparently. But Loeb also had the bad habit of spanking other people's kids. Apparently, that was a thing, which is kind of like, ugh.
Well, I mean, I guess back in the day, that was technically people punished other people's kids.
Yeah, people. But
you are weird. You probably shouldn't be punishing nobody's kids.
Why are you touching people's kids? Now, Leopold and Lowe had always been known as thrill killers historically, but this is a lot of premeditation. Nothing was perfect, and even at this point, they hadn't quite settled on a victim, but they did know a date, which was Wednesday, May 21st, 1924. And this is what happened. So Loeb cashed a check at the Hyde Park, $100 check at the Hyde Park State Bank under Morton D. Ballard. He recognized the teller. He was recognized by the teller. This is how unperfect this is. Leopold was recognized as the person opening the bank account. They got a room at the Morrison Hotel. The suitcase was recognized by the hotel clerk from the room rented by Loeb under Morton D. Ballard. And they found 4 University of Chicago books, and one of the library signature cards in one book was Loeb's.
But like, also, you guys are like social, like you're kind of famous. You're known. So like, why would you think that?
No disguises. You just walking around with a fake name, like, oh yeah, I'm Morton D. Ballard. They like, nah, nigga, you Richard Loeb, actually.
Like, we know who you are. You probably all over the newspaper pages,
the socials,
like.
So they rented a car, excuse me, with a fake reference. The two drove the car around for several hours before returning it. This first rental was just to establish a record with the agency so that Morton D. Ballard could more easily rent a car when the plan was set.
Interesting. They were renting cars back then, I guess.
Right. Yeah. After this trial run, the agency created an identification card and agreed to mail it to Leopold at the Morrison Hotel. But when they got to the Morrison Hotel days later, the suitcase that they had left there was gone because they never actually stayed in the room. And when they realized that the beds and nothing had been slept in, they just took all the shit out. They cleared the rooms out. So then they had the address changed to the Trenier Hotel. They brought a chisel. They then bought a chisel, a rope. They bought some hydrochloric acid, which originally nobody would sell to them. Then they found somebody that would sell it to them. A rag, some ether, some rubber boots, a tape. They're just walking all over town in broad daylight buying
murder equipment.
Right. They typed a ransom note, and then they were ready for the next day. The day of the kidnapping, Leopold hopped in his car. He headed to university for class. Now, Leopold attended an 8 a.m. criminal law class. Then he sat in a 9 a.m. French literature class, which he wasn't enrolled in. He followed, he was then in another law class at 10. Around 11, he met Loeb outside, and they went to rent a dark green Willis Knight. And then by like under Morton D. Ballard. But then after lunch, they went And they drove to Leopold's house where their chauffeur, Sven England, saw them transfer something between cars. And Leopold asked them to check the brakes. And then the pair left in the rental car to pass time. And then they drove around Jackson Park with revolvers ready. They returned to Kenwood around 2:30, parked near the Harvard School. They split up to look for a victim. And so Loeb first approached Johnny Levinson. Then he had to go back to play baseball. Then they spoke briefly with Tommy. But then that was like, Tommy was his brother, by the way, before rejoining with Leopold. And then Leopold suggested that they watch the baseball game. So he was like, you know what? I need my field glasses. I'm like, you gay. You're like, I need my binoculars.
Like,
by the time, now I will say there is some conflicting evidence here too, because they say that this is a green car, and then in one source they said it was a gray car. So I'm like, whatever.
it was 1925.
Yeah, who knows? Now Leopold suggested that they watch the baseball game, so he goes get the field glasses. Now by the time they returned, Levinson was gone. They drove around, searched for another victim, and then around 5:15, just as they were about to give up, Loeb spots Bobby Franks, his second cousin. Leopold turned the car around, pulled alongside Bobby. Loeb called him over, saying he wanted to discuss a tennis racket. Did he want to hop in? Bobby declined to ride. He eventually agreed to get in after, some pressure. And Loeb covered Bobby's mouth, struck him in the head with the chisel 4 times, and Bobby was unconscious. And then at that point, Loeb dragged him into the back seat, shoved the cloth down his throat, and suffocated him.
Okay.
So that's when they drove.
That was before we even sent
Hammond.
the ransom note.
Yeah.
He was already dead.
Yep. They picked him up and killed him. Yep. And then they drove him to Hammond, Indiana. Did the whole murder.
Did in send a ransom note.
Yep. And when they were trying to dispose of the body, that's when Leopold dropped his glasses.
Dummy.
And so who actually killed Bobby remains a mystery. They blamed each other at some point, like, oh, Bobby, he's grabbed him and I was driving and
Makes sense.
They're both liars.
Yeah.
So we won't.
Neither one of them want to be accountable.
I didn't even get into the interrogation. Who gives a fuck? This case is 100 years old. You make your own assessments.
It doesn't matter. They both were there. They're both guilty.
Period. They both admitted it. Now, remember, they didn't complete the ransom plan, remember, because the body was found and the dad couldn't remember the exact location from the caller. So they didn't proceed with the ransom plan. And Leopold attended law classes. He met with Loeb around 11. They went to lunch with Dick Rubel. Around 1, they drove to Leopold's house. They brought the rental car, and then they got caught scrubbing that car down. Then that second ransom note, the one that the dad didn't pick up because it was in that keep it clean box.
Yeah.
They couldn't stick it. This is how fucked up this plan was. They couldn't stick it because the tape wouldn't stick. I'm like, what tape doesn't stick? It wouldn't stick. And it basically said, "Dear sir, proceed immediately to the back of the platform." It was the whole complicated train instruction. At the end of the day, the trial of Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb began in the summer of 1924 and quickly became one of the most sensational court cases of American history. And both men had confessed to the kidnapping and murder. So there was no question of guilt. Instead of a legal battle about whether or not they did it, it was about whether or not they would be executed.
Wow,
so their
sanity.
Yeah. So their families hired Clarence Darrow, who at the time was a famous defense attorney and a fierce opponent of the death penalty. The irony, which is crazy because they end up referencing the debate that Bobby Franks did at the beginning. Rather than risk a jury trial, Darrow entered guilty pleas, moving the case directly to a judge for sentencing. And this was deliberate because if there was no jury, there would be no emotional verdict. He didn't even want to deal with that.
That makes sense.
And he didn't argue that they were innocent. The prosecution presented detailed evidence of premeditation. He was showing how the pair had planned every step. They acted with cold calculation. Meanwhile, Darrow, he had a parade of medical experts who described how they were emotionally immature, how they were mentally disturbed, how they were shaped by their abnormal psychology. He had 88 witnesses. On the University of Michigan website, they have all of the original documents. I looked through them. They are crazy. Like, they're typed. I was like, that sucks. The trial lasted 32 days.
Because there was 88 witnesses.
Literally. The trial lasted 32 days. Darrow's closing argument lasted 12 hours throughout a couple of days. Becoming famous for its passionate plea, which I have at the end. It's kind of deep. I'm not going to read it. I'm tired now. But on September 10th, 1924, Judge John Caverly announced his decision, and both were sentenced to life in prison for murder plus 99 years for kidnapping, sparing them the gallows. But the ruling shocked the observers who expected death sentences. Yeah, the gallows.
They probably would have done like publicly.
Yeah. And cemented the trial as a landmark in criminal law, because this case is still studied. Now, Richard Loeb's life ended violently behind bars in 1936, just 11 years after his sentence, and he was attacked in the shower at Stateville Penitentiary by another inmate named James Day, who slashed him 50 times with a straight razor. Day claimed that Loeb made sexual advances.
That makes sense.
But people just kind of think it was an excuse to kill him.
Loeb wasn't even, he was more the asexual one. So like,
yeah, Loeb was 30. Yeah. That's
so crazy that like
he was the one that died early. And Nathan, in contrast, adapted to prison life. He was working as a teacher. He was a hospital orderly. He served 33 years. He was paroled in 1958. He moved to Puerto Rico. He was married.
Somebody married?
Yes, he did.
Why am I single?
Period. Okay. I was like, worked as a medical technician. He tried really hard to rebuild his reputation. He died of a heart attack in 1971. He was 66. Yes, sir.
Wow.
He outlived Richard Loeb. The kidnapping and the murder of Bobby Frank horrified Chicago, especially the Loebs. Richard's younger brother ended up moving. The Jewish community was terrified. The German Jewish elites were freaked out. The Frank family was flooded with ransom notes and threats after this, which freaks. Mrs. Franks was also devastated. She was so devastated she couldn't even speak to her own friends.
Oh,
yeah. And that's the killing of Bobby Franks.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah,
but like also like it's so crazy how sadistic they were at such a young age.
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting. But I was also like, this is so weird. But like, I was just having a conversation with, was it Steven? Somebody, I don't remember who it was. But I was talking about like how I feel like these days kids are maturing at a later age, because we baby them more.
Yeah.
Where, you know, these kids were in college at 14, 15.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, and they weren't probably the only ones that were, you know,
no.
I feel like kids just did more. They dropped out of high school. They went and started working at 15. They were joining the army at 13 with fake paperwork. And like now, like, you know, for the most part, like kids are still getting picked up and dropped off at school at 17.
Yeah. I mean, shit, you got 40-year-olds still living with their parents. But when you think about even my last episode, The Red Summer of 1919, before there was like really strict child labor laws, you had, you know, children working. And they had, you know, jobs, and they had to take care of their families. And then you had girls that were pregnant and they were getting married. Yeah. And they had high expectations of them acting like women.
Acting like women. So now, on the other side, like also, because like I think there's a difference, right? Like life expectancy was so much shorter.
It was, yeah.
And so it's like people were like, oh, it's like, no, you got to look at it from like, if they weren't having kids at 16,
they'd be dead.
We would all be dead.
40.
There would be no,
for sure.
You know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that was due to like again, environmental practices
it's
too, like your
environmental,
food supply, your water, your
we're healthier,
air,
people are living longer, disease. You know, you can also have babies at a later age these days.
Yeah,
where,
for sure.
You know,
Yeah,
because
for
there's
sure.
more medical technology
Absolutely.
that allows that to happen. Where you know you can have your first kid at 40.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely. You can have your first
unheard
kid
of.
at 50.
Yeah, which was totally I feel like unheard of just 20 years
Having
ago.
a kid at 50 would kill you 20 years ago. And I mean, I think that that's the thing that, you know, even to think, it's interesting when you think about this. Like, you think about these kids, like, obviously, Leopold living until he was almost 70.
Yeah, that sucks. Too. Like, for you to outlive, to live so long.
To be the radical one.
Yeah.
Really, really, really messed
to, like,
up
live
one.
like a whole life.
Yeah.
Like, you took somebody's life, you put somebody in a situation where they lost their life very young.
Yeah.
You were a horrible
It's like,
person.
but did he?
Well, no, I mean, not 100%,
Yeah.
but like, I mean, because he was a willing participant.
Yeah, he was. In-ish.
Yeah, it sounds like, maybe. Yeah.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think
Leopold's clearly the
it's
dominant.
giving a Diddy vibe. When I guess I can't. Only reason why I'm saying that is because like it's
control.
It's control, but it's not enough control that you can't walk away. It's a mind control that's there where you feel like you can't walk away. I mean, I think this is
a part of it too is like you can't walk away because you're scared of
the repercussions. Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, if you didn't do those crappy things to begin with,
yes,
then you wouldn't be worried about, or if you're just like, fuck it. Cause like, you know, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong.
Because I'm like, murder is worse.
Yeah,
like,
it's worse,
I'd rather
right?
be
And like
gay.
in my mind, I'd rather, you know, in my mind, I'm kind of like,
just be gay.
Just be gay. And like, I mean, that's coming from in a space of like 2025. But then also like, even if you look at the Diddy case and like, you know, Cassie.
Murder is more masculine.
You know, well, murder's more masculine. But like, it's part of like one of those things where it's like, am I going to let you continue to blackmail me? Or am I gonna, like, how much do I really care before it's kind of like, okay, I don't
even care anymore. Yeah.
Put it out
do
there.
your thing.
Like, I ain't got time for this.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Throw it out there. Like, especially if it's something we both did. Now you're going to expose yourself. Now, Leopold probably would have exposed himself.
I think so. I think so.
But, you know.
Because I think at some point it's like, who has the most shame? I think Loeb realized that Leopold had no shame. And he'd be the one that would be willing to look crazy. Yeah. And Loeb had more to lose. He was trying to maintain some sense of normalcy. He wanted some social life. He wanted some social currency.
Well, I guess Leopold got married to. That's crazy that he got married to a woman.
And he moved to Puerto Rico though. He was like, I'm out. That's crazy. He moved to Puerto Rico. But I will say that, like, even when you think of the Diddy situation, the fact that like that what's that girl's name? Hey, Bear. She come in here messing stuff up. She do this at the end of every episode. Even, you know, with like Cassie, I was telling my mom, I said, if I ever get to a point where somebody is like on the verge of blackmailing me, I'm going to sit you down and be like, look, you're going to get a series of photos. Just don't look at them. I mean, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
You just don't look at them.
Just don't.
Because I can't have somebody having that over my head forever.
Once you submit to it, they know they didn't have control. It's kind of like, go for it.
Yep.
And sometimes I think calling the bluff will stop them. Especially when it's something super high profile. Like, well, go ahead. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
You know. Because what if Diddy really exposed himself? Probably not.
Yeah. Because I'm like, girl, what you have on Diddy? He got more to lose than you.
100%.
But he was also threatening to kill her. Which is like...
Which, again, if you have to believe that.
Yes, you have to believe
Which then also means, you know, you might know things that we're not...
That's what I'm saying. We're not privy to.
We're not privy to that she might have known.
Yeah.
Or, you know...
Because I think...
even these two guys, like Leopold and, you know...
Yeah,
homeboy. We don't know what really...
Well, and that's... And I mean, this is a very important piece of the letter. You know, there was a part in that letter where he was just kind of like, thought about killing you.
Yeah.
Thought about killing you.
And when you think somebody's that crazy, because clearly he was.
Yeah. I mean...
I guess that's that fear.
Yeah. And I think that's why they both were like, you know what? We gonna lock in.
Yeah.
And we gonna do something together to make sure that our faiths are absolutely tied together.
I'd have been like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I would probably backed out.
Yeah, I'd have backed out.
But I think too, like when Loeb backed out of that second burglary, he knew he couldn't back out of this one.
That's crazy.
But Loeb isn't completely innocent. And they even said it this way because they've always tried to figure out like which one. I think they both were, who was dominant, who was submissive. I think there is a dominant and a submissive, but I also think that just like in a dominant and submissive relationship, takes two to tango still. There's still some enjoyment there, regardless.
You're getting output somehow.
Exactly. You're
getting some satisfaction out of this, especially in the beginning.
Exactly. 100%.
You know, you could have definitely got over it, grew out of it. Because you started so young, and then you're like, okay, this was fun.
But they just kept
escalating.
Just like we talked about. They just kept going and going and going. He was like, oh yeah, I like the doing the time up thing. Ooh, I like the fires thing. Ooh, I like doing the killing the animals thing. Ooh, I like doing this thing. Ooh, let's kidnap somebody.
Yeah, let's kidnap somebody.
Ooh, murder. And that's the thing too. They were like, we don't really know where the murder came in.
Yeah,
but
clearly it wasn't the kidnapping because he murdered him as soon as he got in the car.
Yeah, literally. Literally. And I think that was y'all just getting carried away.
Yeah, and that could have been it, right? Maybe they hit him because the kid started, Bobby got to reacting and he's like, shut up.
Yep.
But then once you hit him once, then you don't stop.
Yep.
And now
then you realize, oh
oops,
snap,
he did.
I actually like this a little bit. Yeah.
There's that part.
Yep. So thank you all. Hope you enjoyed it. It's 2 hours.
That wasn't bad. That didn't even seem like 2 hours. That was a really good story.
Girl, Lona, you were doing good.
You didn't even know she was here today.
I just could not find a sweet spot. And had I read all them letters, we would have.
Yeah, 100%.
For a while. But yeah, I will see you all on next ep, which will be the last ep.
For the season 3.
But I thank you all yet again for joining me on this one.
Thank you for having me back.
Yes, thank you, Dustin. Oh, and the book I read for this was called Nothing But the Night by Greg King and Penny Wilson. It was a very interesting read. It's on audiobook if you all are interested. And and check out, there's an old movie starring Orson Welles and Dean Stockwell. It's loose. I'm saying loosely based because they changed the character names, but it's called Compulsion. I put it in the show notes as well. It's on Amazon Prime. I watched it in film school. It's one of my favorite film noirs from back in the day, and that's based on Leopold and Love as well. Watch that. So yeah, check it out. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all in a couple of weeks. Whatever. Bye.
Bye.